Hello, my name is Sarbaugh, and the purpose of this presentation is to show the findings of my research that I conducted on the influence of education and technology combining. During this presentation, I will introduce the topic being researched, state the problem, review the literature pieces which I used to help complete the study, explain my research design and the findings of this research, and then conclude with my references. I would like to begin by introducing my topic. It's obvious that education has had a huge impact on humanity since the beginning of time, whether that was one individual teaching another basic skills of survival, or as we progressed as a society and we started developing new philosophies about life and death, education has always been a huge part of humanity. Well, as education continued to expand, so did the world and the economy, and now our economy is growing again, and I'm not sure if the evolution of education is on track with our societal growth. I don't know if our education is getting our students prepared for the tasks they will face in the real world or their future jobs. A reason for this is the explosion of technology. So, in the last 15 years, technology has expanded so much and has become part of everyone's daily life, changing the way we do simple tasks, making difficult duties such as taxes simple. And so figuring out if the evolution of education is keeping up with the technology expansion is very critical. And then I think this study is relevant because I'm currently a graduate student who is enrolled in a program which is all online. And I am taking another course which is called The Future of Education, or of Technology in Education and Work. And I find it interesting to see if this education I'm receiving all online is as beneficial as it would be if I took in-course classes, or if the information I am learning will be relevant in 5 years because technology is expanding our world and economy so much. So these are the main reasons I decided to research this topic. When discussing technology and education, there are many problems. First, we need to understand the current effects, positive or negative, of the technology which has already been introduced to our educational systems. We do not truly have a sense of how beneficial or not they are with our education. Not only that, we also need to understand that countries around the world are teaching these new methods with technology, and they're advancing relatively quick. And we need to see if we need to maintain as a nation are competitive with these with these other nations or countries if we want to still be a global power or leader. We don't want to fall behind in 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, realize that we made a mistake by not at least digging into this topic. And that just all comes down to is this truly beneficial to use technology in education? And so therefore, my next slide will state the problem, which is also my thesis. When choosing which direction to aim my research, I thought it was most important to look at higher educational institutions because, one, I am currently a graduate student right now, and I feel like they have the most room to benefit. And so when deciding my thesis, I thought it was important to see the benefits and also the harmful effects of integrating this technology into colleges or any higher educational institution. And so therefore, my thesis of the research is the integration of technology into higher educational institutions beneficial or detrimental to students? During the research process, I examined hundreds of sources. They were from databases, journals, websites, magazines, books, all sorts. The hope was by looking through all these different sources, I'd be able to come up with the best, 15 to 20, which would help solve my thesis. Of these around 20 sources which I finally decided on, most of them were also meta-analysis studies. So therefore they had tons of numbers and material which I could compare with each other. Of these sources, there were two that were extremely beneficial. The first was a study by Sami Lazarka, who was a graduate student, and this was her thesis report. And the right side of the screen is the graph from her work, which identifies the main predictors of technology adaptation. I find this is very beneficial because if you can identify which sources or which factors affect the integration of technology the most, it'll help you be able to do this so effectively. Another source which was very beneficial was a meta-analysis study by David and Karen Larwin. This focused on the use of computer-assisted instruction. This was a very reliable source. They took data from over 40 years and over 40,000 participants and came up with some results on the benefits of having computers in the classroom. Of all the sources, I felt that they were relevant. The ones that I used I felt were relevant. They were not outdated, and they helped solve my issue, which the research was aiming to do. In determining my research design, I first decided if I was going to use qualitative or quantitative research, and I decided on qualitative. Qualitative researchers are more interested in understanding the meaning people have constructed or how people make sense of their world and the experience they have in those worlds, and the experience they have in their world, excuse me. And so it's pretty much all the natural occurrences, and so I felt like I was watching the individual's experiences with technology in their education. And so I thought it was appropriate to use qualitative research. And then kind of more subset of qualitative was meta-analysis. In meta-analysis, I have a link below, which is a video which is provided to the class that explains it. But the goal is pretty much to bring similar data from similar research designs or researchers together to make more accurate results. And that's what the diagram shows. There's 4 studies, and so pretty much I just researched, like I said, I don't know how many topics, how many sources, and I narrowed it down to which I felt were the most suitable and I guess credible. And I narrowed it down to, I don't know how many I had more than these 4, and then I went into depth and analyzed it and brought data together to come up with my systematic review. When determining my research design, I also was kind of analyzed what I was going to be searching for, and I thought a key part of this research was identifying which factors were most prominent or influential in the process of implementing technology. And so that's what I started by using all my sources and identifying which main topics were mentioned. And I just kind of read through each thing and went through each source one by one and wrote down which factors they found were applicable. And this graph below is showing in what percentage of my sources the topics were mentioned. And obviously the proper teacher training was mentioned in almost every one, and same with the teacher's attitude towards technology. And that, I mean, not just technology, but their willingness to be accepting towards change of style of teaching and just a new modern era. When evaluating my results, I found that overall that integrating technology into higher educational institutions had positive effects, but that was to a certain extent. Just like most things, everything, I mean, some things can be good for you, but if you have too much, then it starts to be a little more detrimental, and I'll get into that more in my next slide. But then I also found a huge part of the success of technological integration is the attitudes and of the teachers, educators, the administrators, anyone involved in the process of teaching students. I mean, for it to be beneficial, I mean, for it to be effective, it really is on their shoulders, because they're the leaders of the classroom. They're the ones that the students are listening to. And so if these leaders are standoffish and not excited or willing to integrate these technologies, then why should the student be? And so the students or the teacher's attitude is a key aspect in that. And then also in the success of the integration, and just success if it's going to be integrated and if it will be beneficial to students, is if the teachers have proper resources. We want the teachers to teach our students properly, they have to know how to. And with the technology being a change in their previous teaching styles, it's crucial to give them the proper resources, such as IT services, one-on-one sessions, to properly educate the teachers on how to use technology in the classroom to the most efficient manner. So this graph shows the number of hours per week a teacher uses technology in the classroom, whether that be computer assistant learning or tablets or just programs on computers to help teach their students. And then on the left is the students' test scores. And the data from all the different sources had different rating scales. And so what I did is I looked at each individual source and some was as 0 to 1, some was 1 to 5, other was at 100%. And I adjusted it so each was out of 1 out of 10, or 0 to 100%. And so as you can see, for the most part, there's no technology used. You have a wide range of test scores, but as the hours increase on the number hours of technology used increases, the test scores gradually increase as well. Of course, there's going to be some students who don't do as well. That's why you see a 4 with the 4 hours. But right around 5 hours seems to be the peak, the most effective way to introduce technology. And with more than 5 hours per week, the test scores seem to decline. And that could possibly be because the students are using technology for other resources. Not paying attention, playing games, or they don't feel as interactive with the teacher. But my research finds that technology is beneficial to a certain extent, and that is on the teacher to kind of evaluate her individual class, his or hers individual class, and see where they benefit. In conclusion, I've come up with that technology is beneficial to education. However, for it to be beneficial, there are some guidelines. There's limitations. We have to know how much technology needs to be integrated into a classroom, because too much or too little can be overbearing on students, or it could be unnoticeable, and so therefore a waste of resources. Another conclusion is I found that technology is extremely dependent on teachers, their attitude, their ability to truly teach with the new materials, and I think that is a very important find. And then overall, I felt like this was a very successful study because I did find that technology is beneficial, and although it answered my overall thesis question, it did leave some future areas that should be researched. One, I think, is there needs to be more research done on what the proper curriculum for integration is. I mean, it's hard to just do an overall nationwide curriculum when each state, school, kid is different, but there needs to be research put into it so there can at least be a platform. And then I think also with teachers playing such a large role in the success of technology in the classrooms, we need to put more research in to see how accepting teachers, administration, staff is of this new technology. We find out that 75% of the current teachers, educators, are not willing to use this new technology. It would be a waste of money to try to implement it because we would not be getting the full benefits. And so I think it's key to find out an overall attitude of teachers and then how to change that attitude if they're not as open towards the new ideas. And so I felt this overall research project has been a very, very successful experiment for me. I found solid information and statistics to back up my thesis that technology in upper division educational institutions is beneficial.